Picture this, a wide-open plain, golden under the sun, the wind carrying the scent of dust and danger. In the distance, the earth thuds with each step of a creature so massive, its presence makes trees tremble. This wasn't a fantasy world. This was Earth just tens of thousands of years ago. And those footsteps, they belonged to the mammoth, an animal as heavy as a bus, with tusks that could twist a tree in half. Our ancestors weren't just surviving, they were living among giants. Let's step back into that world. During the Pleistocene epoch, a period that lasted from about 2.6 million to 11,700 years ago, Earth was home to what we now call megafauna. These were massive animals, far larger than their modern-day relatives. And to early humans, they were both a threat and a source of survival. Consider the woolly mammoth. It stood nearly 13 feet tall at the shoulder and weighed up to 12,000 pounds. Covered in thick fur, with curved tusks as long as a grown man, it was the Ice Age's undisputed tank. But mammoths weren't the only beasts roaming the tundra. In the forests, saber-toothed cats, not lions but closer relatives like Smilodon, waited in ambush, their 7-inch long teeth ready to puncture vital organs in one brutal strike. They were powerful, muscular predators that didn't just kill to eat, they eliminated threats. That meant humans too. Then there were the giant ground sloths. Yes, sloths. Except these weren't sleepy tree huggers. They stood nearly 20 feet tall when upright and used their massive claws to tear through vegetation or defend themselves if provoked. Not exactly cuddly. And let's not forget dire wolves. Yes, Game of Thrones got that part right. Larger, more muscular than today's gray wolves, hunting in coordinated packs. Or the Irish elk, whose antlers spanned over 12 feet and could weigh more than 80 pounds. These weren't creatures humans could casually pick off with sticks and stones. They were fast, brutal, and unforgiving. A single mistake could cost your entire tribe their lives, yet our ancestors dared to hunt them. Why? Because the reward was immense. One mammoth could feed an entire tribe for weeks, offering not only meat, but bones for tools, hides for shelter, and fat for fire. The risk was life-threatening, but the payoff was survival. This chapter isn't just about marveling at these incredible creatures. It's about understanding what early humans were truly up against. Their world was one of constant high-stakes encounters, with no margin for error. And somehow, against all odds, humans didn't just survive. They became the most dangerous predator on Earth. Now imagine you're part of a small hunting band. 10, maybe 12 people. No armor, no horses, no bows, just sharp rocks, wooden spears, and your wits. You see a mammoth herd in the valley below. You know they're dangerous, but you also know they're essential. This is where the raw fear kicks in. There were no zoos, no safety fences. When our ancestors first laid eyes on these enormous animals, it wasn't wonder they felt, it was terror. The kind that clutches your chest, that tells you to run. But they didn't run. They watched, they waited, they learned. Early humans weren't the biggest, fastest, or strongest species, but they had two evolutionary trump cards: pattern recognition and memory. Over time, they observed how herds moved, how predators attacked, where animals stumbled, what scared them. Fire, for example, was a game changer. Animals feared it. Even massive creatures instinctively avoided flame and smoke. So early humans used that. They didn't always kill with fire, they controlled space with it. Imagine driving a mammoth toward a ravine, using flaming branches and loud cries to spook it in the right direction. It's not about brute force, it's chess, not boxing. But this wasn't just physical, it was deeply mental. These people had no written language, but they passed stories, warnings, techniques. Through oral tradition, fireside stories became tactical blueprints. Don't chase from the left, the wind carries your scent that way. Don't corner a sloth, its claws can gut you. Wait for the spring rains, the mammoths slip near the river bend. These weren't legends. They were data, survival data. And over time, a mental map of the beast formed. Ancient humans weren't just afraid anymore. They became strategists. But what's most remarkable is this. The first real contact between human and megafauna wasn't always violent. There's evidence suggesting early humans may have initially scavenged, waiting until a beast died from natural causes or was brought down by predators before stepping in. This was the first phase of the relationship, fear mixed with caution. Only later, as confidence and brain power grew, did they make the unthinkable decision: we can take them down ourselves. And that decision would change the world. As our ancestors grew bolder, so did their ambition. What began as cautious scavenging evolved into full-blown organized hunts, and that shift left an unmistakable mark, not just in bones and tools, but on the very balance of Earth's ecosystems. Let's talk numbers for a moment. Across 5 continents, a startling pattern emerges. Shortly after humans arrived, megafauna populations started to plummet. Coincidence? Not quite. While climate change played a role, increasing evidence points toward the rise of humans as apex hunters as a major tipping point. Take North America, for example. Before humans crossed the Bering Land Bridge, the continent teemed with mammoths, mastodons, giant beavers, and saber-toothed cats. Within just a few thousand years of human arrival, most of these creatures vanished. Similar stories unfold in Australia, South America, and Eurasia. But here's the twist. Our ancestors didn't just overhunt. They hunted smart. They didn't run after animals with wild abandon. They used the terrain, the seasons, and social cues. Some of the most fascinating archaeological finds reveal trap pits, cliff drives, and strategic ambush sites, places where humans funneled massive creatures into dead ends or over deadly drops. Imagine the noise, the thunder of hooves, the shouts of hunters, the ground shaking as a 5-ton beast loses its footing and tumbles over a cliff's edge, sealing its fate and feeding a village. This was no accident, it was planned. And this planning gave rise to something deeper: culture. Hunting wasn't just survival, it became spiritual, ceremonial, tied to identity. Cave paintings in places like Lascaux in France show detailed mammoth hunts, not just as events but as myths. These weren't just drawings, they were early cinema, ancient IMAX etched in stone. Why does this matter? Because it proves something astonishing. Long before modern science, early humans had a profound understanding of their environment. They observed animal behavior like ethologists. They managed group dynamics like military leaders. They harnessed fire like engineers. And all of this without written language. So next time someone calls cavemen dumb or primitive, remind them, these were the people who brought down giants with no metal, no wheels, just intelligence, courage, and each other. No spears, no blades, no bows, just bare feet on hot dirt and lungs filled with resolve. This wasn't a battle of strength, it was a war of patience. Welcome to the most mind-blowing survival strategy you've probably never heard of: persistence hunting. It's not fiction. It's how early humans, armed with nothing more than determination and knowledge of the land, could bring down animals 10 times their size. Here's how it worked. Most large animals, even massive ones like antelope or wild horses, can sprint at jaw-dropping speeds. But here's the catch: they can't cool down like we can. Humans, by contrast, are freakishly good at one thing: sweating. Yes, sweating may be gross, but it's evolutionary magic. It allows us to regulate our body heat while running over long distances. Now picture this. A group of humans begins to chase an animal during the hottest part of the day. Not fast, not aggressive, just steady. They follow it, push it, force it to sprint again and again. Every time the animal thinks it's escaped, the humans appear again. After an hour or two of this, the animal starts to falter. Its muscles overheat. Its breathing becomes ragged. It panics, burns energy, collapses, and the hunters walk up and finish the job. This is endurance hunting, and it's been documented among the San people of the Kalahari Desert, even in modern times. It's not flashy, it's not cinematic, but it works brilliantly. And think about what it says about ancient humans. They weren't chasing the kill, they were chasing certainty. They knew that if they had enough time, enough knowledge of the animal's rhythm and the terrain, the beast would break before they did. It's not strength that wins the wild, it's willpower. So the next time someone tells you that ancient humans were helpless without tools, tell them about the men and women who could run an animal to death using nothing but breath, heat, and grit. Chasing animals for hours wasn't the only way ancient humans hunted. Sometimes they flipped the script entirely and turned the land itself into a weapon. Let's talk about trap-based hunting, one of the oldest and most brilliant tactics in human history. Why risk charging a mammoth when you can get the mammoth to charge into a pit? Archaeologists have uncovered massive ancient pitfall traps dug by hand, sometimes lined with sharp stones or wooden stakes, then covered with brush and leaves. These weren't casual ditches. They were strategic death zones, planned well in advance and often placed along animal migration paths. Once the herd was nearby, humans would create noise, waves of movement, even use fire to funnel the animals toward these hidden traps. The result? A creature weighing several tons plunges into a hole it never saw coming. This was no longer about matching brute force. It was thinking 3 moves ahead. In some regions, humans used natural terrain as part of their ambush. Cliffs were a favorite. Entire herds of bison or deer were sometimes driven toward the edge, forced into a stampede that ended in a sheer drop. It's known as a buffalo jump, and sites like head-smashed-in Buffalo Jump in Canada offer haunting evidence of how devastatingly effective this tactic was. Now imagine the coordination it took. Dozens of people working together, knowing exactly when to make noise, when to stay hidden, when to push, and when to let the cliff do the killing. No steel, no armor, just brain power and timing. Even water became a weapon. In some cases, hunters would wait for animals to cross rivers or marshes, slowing their movements, trapping them in mud, or forcing them into bottlenecks. It turned an animal's own power into a weakness. And here's something often overlooked. Children and elders sometimes played key roles too. They would act as runners, noisemakers, decoys. This wasn't just a young man's game. It was a tribal effort, with every member understanding the plan. This level of teamwork and planning, that's not primitive. That's military-grade intelligence, born from survival. It's proof that humans didn't evolve to overpower nature. They evolved to outsmart it. Let's talk about the most mysterious weapon early humans ever used: fear. Not just their own fear, but the ability to create fear in others, especially in the minds of creatures far bigger and stronger than them. And the secret to that? Fire. Fire was more than warmth. It was light in the darkness. It was protection against predators. But perhaps most importantly, it became a psychological tool in hunting. Many animals, especially large herbivores, are naturally afraid of fire and smoke. Humans learned to use this reaction to manipulate movement. Picture it: small groups of humans creeping toward a herd at night, torches in hand, the flickering light causing confusion and panic. A wall of fire blocks one path. Shouts echo from behind. The herd has one escape route, and it leads directly into a ravine. The hunt was already over before the animal even realized it. But beyond physical tactics, early humans were masters of animal psychology. They observed and cataloged behavior patterns: when animals rested, how they reacted to certain sounds, where they migrated in different seasons. This wasn't just instinct, it was early behavioral science. Some hunters mimicked animal calls to lure prey. Others disguised themselves using mud, foliage, or even furs to blend in. They approached quietly from downwind, understanding how scent carried on the air. They didn't need bows or blades to be lethal. They needed strategy and control. Now think about what this means. Thousands of years before humans developed formal language or writing systems, they were already building and executing complex, multi-step operations. Hunts could take days. Setups might be planned weeks in advance. It was mental warfare, and it laid the foundation for everything we take for granted today, from group planning to leadership to battlefield tactics. But perhaps most profound of all, the hunt was never just about meat. It was a dance between predator and prey, a test of mind against nature, a moment where early humans, frail in body but fierce in thought, proved that intelligence wasn't just a survival tool, it was dominance. They didn't need weapons. They had each other. They had fire. And most of all, they had the mindset to win. If there's one myth we need to shatter, it's this: the lone hunter, the rugged, solitary figure who takes down a beast with sheer bravery. That's not how ancient humans survived. That's not how we won. The truth? No one hunted alone. In the wild, danger wasn't just about animals. It was about being isolated. One mistake, one wrong turn, one twisted ankle, and that was it. Game over. That's why our ancestors formed tribes, not just for emotional comfort, but for tactical survival. Let's break it down. A tribe wasn't just a random group of people. It was an ecosystem of roles. Everyone had a purpose. The fastest might be the chasers. The quietest? The sneaks. The trackers. The strongest carried meat home. The elders gave strategy. The children learned by watching and often helped flush animals out or keep fires burning. It wasn't chaotic. It was coordinated. This kind of planning took more than just observation. It required something uniquely human: communication. Before spoken language as we know it, early humans used gestures, grunts, eye contact, and rhythmic sounds to organize themselves during a hunt. Think of it like the earliest version of a battlefield radio system, only with hand signals and vocal tones. Now imagine a coordinated ambush on a herd of elk. A dozen humans silently move into position, signaling each other through subtle waves and clicks. No words, just intuition, practice, and mutual trust. It's symphony-level teamwork, with survival as the prize. And this teamwork didn't stop when the animal fell. Once the beast was down, the real work began: butchering, carrying, sharing, preserving. The meat fed everyone, not just the hunter. There was no winner takes all. The tribe knew that survival meant unity, and unity meant sharing the risk, the reward, and the responsibility. So when we talk about how early humans hunted beasts 10 times their size without weapons, we're really talking about something deeper. They weren't individuals against nature. They were tribes in harmony with it. A successful hunt didn't just require muscle and memory, it demanded organization. Behind every ambush or endurance chase was something more advanced than we give credit for: leadership. Not the kind you see in movies. No thrones, no crowns. But someone had to make the call. When do we strike? Who takes which position? What happens if something goes wrong? And that person wasn't chosen by force. Early tribal leadership often came from wisdom and trust, not just dominance. The one who remembered the last time a mammoth stampeded through the wrong valley, that's the voice everyone listened to. This wasn't about ego, it was about survival. The leader wasn't the strongest or loudest. They were often the most observant, the most respected, the most fair. Because in a tribe, reputation was everything. And if you betrayed that trust, say by taking more meat than your share, it wasn't just a slap on the wrist. It could mean exile. And exile meant death. So what emerged, quietly and powerfully, was something profound: the first social contracts, unspoken rules, moral codes, agreements built not with ink, but with mutual need. If you helped on the hunt, you ate. If you risked your life for the group protected you. If you contributed, you mattered. Over time, this created a kind of social glue, a foundation that modern civilization still rests on today. Things like fairness, reciprocity, accountability, they didn't come from books. They came from the wilderness, from fire circles after the hunt, from knowing that we are strongest when we act as one. Even rituals and ceremonies began here. Some tribes performed dances or painted animals on cave walls to honor the hunt, not to glorify death, but to give meaning to sacrifice. These weren't just superstitions. They were cultural systems built to remind the tribe, what we do together. And that's the hidden genius of ancient humans. They didn't just hunt as a group. They built society around that act. So what does any of this have to do with us? The modern human, scrolling on a screen, thousands of years removed from the wild. More than we realize. You see, the strategies, instincts, and social behaviors that helped ancient humans survive the hunt didn't disappear. They became hardwired into who we are today. Let's start with something simple. Teamwork. Why do people thrive in groups? Why do we form families, clubs, companies, nations? It's not just cultural, it's evolutionary. We are wired to collaborate, to communicate, to share goals. That's the legacy of tribal hunting. Why do we admire leaders who stay calm under pressure, who protect their team and make sacrifices? Because those were the leaders who kept our ancestors alive. The alpha wasn't always the loudest. It was the one who made sure no one got left behind on the hunt. Even our stress responses, adrenaline, fight or flight, hyper-awareness, are echoes of the wild. Your pounding heart during a tough decision, that's ancient biology preparing for a mammoth charge. And the rituals we hold dear today, weddings, funerals, community meals, even sports, carry traces of those primal ceremonies around the fire. Celebrating a successful hunt, mourning a lost member, sharing resources. These weren't luxuries. They were survival tools wrapped in emotion. But perhaps the most important thing we inherited is storytelling. Ancient humans didn't write books, but they told stories about the hunt, the danger, the clever trick, the brave escape. These stories weren't entertainment, they were instructions for life, passed down to the next generation. And here we are, still telling stories. Stories of challenge, stories of triumph, stories about how the small can defeat the mighty, not through power, but through unity and thought. So when we ask, how did humans take down beasts 10 times their size with no weapons? The answer isn't found in muscle or metal. It's found in each other, in the tribe, in the fire, in the mindset that refuses to break. That's our real inheritance.